After the release of the two Hunger Games prequels, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping, it got me thinking. Suzanne Collins could really expand on this already epic franchise. Although it isn't very likely, it is fun to think about. After researching and thinking about what I want to see most, I compiled a list of the 5 best Hunger Games prequel ideas I want to see next. These are just what I think would be the coolest personally, so if you have any other ideas, let me know in the comments. Without any further ado, let's get it. My first choice is a prequel about the Dark Days, the destruction of District 13, and the first ever Hunger Games. These events span over only a few years, so it shouldn't be too difficult to fit into one movie. For me, this would without a doubt be an amazing prequel, as we would be able to see the first rebellion in the Dark Days, how and why District 13 was destroyed, and the overall formation of Panem as a whole. Here's how I imagine the prequel would go. I imagine it would start a few years before the Dark Days, when the districts launched a revolution against the capital, resulting in a major civil war. During this time, we could see how tragic the First Rebellion really was and how much damage it caused. We could also see the efforts made by the rebels to take down the capital, including District 5 cutting off their power supply and the lack of food all around. The actual Dark Days themselves would arguably be even cooler, which was basically the worst parts of the war. We could see rebel forces attempting to invade the capital from the mountains, which left them vulnerable to capital airstrikes, resulting in heavy casualties. That event alone allowed the capital to take the upper hand in the war. We could also see District 13's hand in this. Realizing the rebels lost their advantage, they threatened the capital into letting them become an independent district and allowing them to present themselves as a district the capital destroyed. The capital, not wanting to engage in a nuclear war, agreed to leave District 13 alone and use them as propaganda to scare the other districts. With District 13 withdrawn from the war, the rebels collapsed, allowing the capital to win the war easily. After the Dark Days, we could see the signing of the Treaty of Treason and the dominance of the capital beginning to form. Then, we could see the first ever Hunger Games take place, how it went down, and what the capital and districts thought of it. Imagine this would probably be when the prequel would end. There are many choices for protagonists for this prequel. If Suzanne wanted a capitalist perspective, I think the Grand Man would be the best choice. She was around for the whole war and experienced so much. If she wanted a district's perspective, we would probably get the victor of the first Hunger Games, as they would be old enough during the Dark Days in the war. All in all, this prequel seems amazing to me and something I'd definitely read and watch. My second choice for another prequel would have to be the first ever quarter Quell. Now that we've seen the second and third quarter Quells, it only makes sense to gain some insight on the first one too. If you don't know already, the first quarter Quell was an interesting one. President Snow explains it perfectly. On the 25th anniversary, as a reminder to the rebels that their children were dying because of their choice to initiate violence, every district was made to hold an election and vote on the tributes that who would represent it. This dark and cruel twist likely didn't go over well in the districts, so I'd be curious to see how they reacted to it and who the districts chose to represent them. Did they choose the most athletic and strongest kids to enter the games? Did they choose the most unpopular? The smartest? Did some kids want to be voted for, like in career districts? All of these questions and more could be answered in this prequel. Dr. Gull was a host, alongside Lucky Flickerman, and many special features were added for this special Hunger Games. It is possible that Coriolanus Snow is the head game maker or is involved in these Hunger Games as well. A unique arena was built for a one-time use, and the cornucopia made its first appearance. The Hunger Games developed from this, so it would be cool to see them create a custom Hunger Games arena, and if the televised event has improved since the 10th Hunger Games. The protagonist for this would be a difficult choice. From a tributes perspective, we could get the victor and see their journey throughout the games. Megs could also be a cool protagonist, as she likely mentored the District 4 tribute in this games. From a capital's perspective, we could even get Dr. Gull and see how she created the arena and organized the event. All in all, I think this prequel would be extremely cool, but it isn't very likely Suzanne would create this. For my third choice, I'd have to go with Finnick's Hunger Games and his backstory, along with his time mentoring Annie. I imagine Suzanne would pull a Haymitch on us and start the story on Reaping Day, where he would of course be reaped and escorted to the capital. Here he would do the usual things to happen before the Hunger Games actually started, like the training and interviews. His mentor for these games was Megs Flanagan, whom he of course adored. Like Sunrise, I imagine Suzanne would throw in a few surprises in the days leading up to the games, just to mix it up a bit and make it more exciting. Finnick was a career tribute coming from District 4, so we could possibly see him form an alliance with the other careers. In the games, he was a very strong fighter with spears and knives from the cornucopia and gained many sponsors due to his good looks and fighting skills. Later in the games, he received a trident from a sponsor gift, and from there on it was game over as he was highly skilled with this weapon. We could also see how tragic it was for him after the games. Being 14, he had to wait a few years before Snow could use him for other purposes, so that likely ruined him because if he didn't do what he was told, Snow would kill someone close to him. These few dark years of his life that would hopefully go by fast in the prequel would lead right into the 70th Hunger Games, where he mentored Annie Cresta, his one true love. Here, we could see possibly Annie's games and what Finnick's perspective was mentoring her, and see Finnick and Annie's love blossom. This would likely lead right up to the 74th Games in the original trilogy. For me, this would be a great prequel, as we could possibly see two interesting Hunger Games in one prequel and get much needed backstory on Finnick Odair and Annie Cresta. I doubt it's very likely we will get this prequel after the release of Sunrise on the Reaping, but it is possible. For my fourth choice, I selected a prequel about the Covey long ago, or the origins of the Covey. This might seem like an odd pick, but hear me out. This prequel, in my mind, would probably start a decade or two before the Dark Days, when the Covey truly thrived. This little spin-off could show us a ton of things about Panem and the Covey itself. First, this prequel could do a lot for the world-building aspect of the Hunger Games and give us a lot more insight about other districts and other parts of Panem as we know it. We know that the Covey loved to travel, especially before the capital rounded them all up, so following the Covey's journeys and adventures before the Dark Days would be very cool. We could see them performing in other districts to make food and money they lived off, and even where they lived originally, which could possibly be outside of all of the districts. Second, we could meet many more interesting characters, since Lenore, Lucy Gray, and the rest of the Covey all had unique personalities. If Suzanne went the path I'm thinking of, we could even be introduced to Lucy Gray's parents, or one of them could even be the protagonist. Seeing the origins of how the Covey formed could be very interesting. Did they originate from the capital or the districts? Did they have to escape one of them to become the group of nomadic people they were? It could also be interesting to see what Panem was like before the Dark Days. I'd be curious to see who was in charge, what it was like in the districts in the capital, and even little things like if there were peacekeepers and were the roles given to the districts different. It's hard to tell where this story would go with this prequel, but I have faith in Suzanne Collins to make it great. For my fifth and final choice of what I think would be the best prequel to come next, I chose the backstory of Alma Coin and the rise of District 13. The best part about making this prequel is that it wouldn't break canon really at all. I haven't fully finished Sunrise on the Reaping yet, but from what I know, we don't learn about District 13's plan and their secret until 75 years after the Dark Days. With this prequel, we could see the true rise of District 13 and how they thrived as an organized underground district. It would likely follow Alma Coin, where we could see her rise to power and how she influenced people into voting her as their leader. We could also see the advanced technology District 13 had to work with and just how exactly they created their weapons and built an entire population and army from almost nothing. Two characters we could see appear in this prequel could be Bonnie and Twill, two characters that didn't make it into the movies. We could see if they somehow made it to District 13 and died while they're there before Katniss arrived, or disguised themselves as other people and returned to a different district. With the rise of Coin, we could see her childhood, what she was required to do on a day-to-day basis, and how much information 13 had on the other districts and the capital. For me, it would be very interesting to see just how District 13 rose from the ashes and how they built and maintained their nuclear technology. There are many ways Suzanne could go with this story, and I have faith that this prequel would turn out great. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my 5 best ideas for a new Hunger Games prequel. I haven't fully finished reading Sunrise yet, so if some information is inaccurate or not updated, I apologize. Don't forget, if you have any other ideas, let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video. Peace.